Hello everyone, welcome to a very impromptu stream from Fantasy Football Scout. I've got Andy here who's been roped into this. Mr. Sonaldo, I kind of just said, do you want to do this stream? You said, sure. Didn't really know what you were getting yourself into. But here we are. It's a live reaction to the Double Game Week 22 announcement. We've done no prep, have we, Andy? Just going to wing it, aren't we?
Yeah, Az just messaged me about 30 minutes ago, said, hey, do you want to do a video on the Double Game Week that's just been announced? And of course I said yes. So here we are, unprepared, but let's talk.
Have you looked at your team yet and how you're kind of set up and what the fixtures are? Or are you just going into this like completely blind at the moment?
I actually have a very good idea of what I need to do with my team. I'm very clear on that. So maybe, of course, very early days, and literally it's been announced the last hour or two. Yeah. So a lot's going to change, but I have an idea of what to do with my team, and hopefully that can help some, viewers just kind of generally assess what they want to do with their own teams.
Yeah. Because it's not, I think obviously Ben Crellin and other people have been posting their kind of predictions, and we knew kind of what fixtures were likely. I think Ben had two kind of ideas that he thought they were going to be, and it's more in keeping with the second one that he had, except for Southampton and Newcastle haven't had the Double Game Week added in. So let's just have a look at the games that we've got. So this has been confirmed today. We've got Brentford against Liverpool away and Manchester United at home. Horrible looking Double Game Week for Brentford. I've got Ethan Pinnock. I'm not expecting huge amounts from
you have
him.
Pinnock.
I do, yeah. I think that could be a -2 going into that, which is great. We've got Brighton, so my team, a decent looking home game against Palace, and then another home game against Chelsea, obviously a lot tougher. Burnley with two decent looking games. We maybe will see some investment in some of their players. Leicester at home, Watford at home. Chelsea, two away matches. Man City away, Brighton away. Leicester with a decent looking two games, I think. And we're going to be talking about some of their assets in this. Burnley away, Tottenham at home. Manchester United, two away matches. Villa away, Brentford away. Looks quite good for their attackers if we can get the right ones. Tottenham, Arsenal at home, Leicester away. Already seeing investment in the likes of Son and Kane and Reguilon. That'll probably increase. And then Watford with the best double of Game Week 22. Newcastle away and Burnley away. So what kind of strikes you with these? What did you think when you first saw these Double Game Week fixtures?
First initial thinking was very underwhelming Double Game Week. For me personally, I was very disappointed Arsenal didn't get the double, because if Arsenal got the double, I would have straight away probably most likely done a bench boost. The reason being is that means they're playing Liverpool, so Liverpool get the double as well, and so I would be fielding. At least I would have 9 automatic doublers plus 2 transfers to get to 11, and then bench boost the rest of my single game weekers, which I'm very happy with, which is Antonio, the likes of Gray, Saka and Ramsdale. So it's not too bad. However, or not Saka, Bowen. However, with that not in play anymore, most likely I think I'm going to, go towards just fielding a starting 11, and we'll talk more about that later, but very underwhelming to say the least. How about yourself, Az?
Come on, Sonaldo. Got to show a bit of excitement and a bit of passion.
I'm very excited about this Double Game Week, guys. I think we're about to have a lot of points, so very excited.
We'll soundbite that bit and we'll get rid of the rest, and it'll be fine. Yeah, I completely agree. I think it is a very underwhelming game week. I put together a kind of a free hit team. I know a lot of people are going to be thinking about doing that. And there's people in the chat already sort of talking about potentially free hitting, and we'll come on to my team in a bit. I've got 5 double game weekers out of this list, and one of them's Pinnock, which probably doesn't really count. But I mean, to get 7 out with a hit probably seems about right. And
yes,
there isn't anyone I fear massively that not owning. Even if I didn't have anyone, I don't think there's anyone really. I mean, Son's probably the standout. He'll probably be my captain. I imagine he'd be yours. He'd be yours as well, given that he's in your name. And then Watford, one of King or Dennis, I think looks pretty important. But other than that, I mean, what do you think about Ronaldo? I mean, 2 games against Villa and Brentford looks really good. I'm not really considering him for captaincy.
Yeah, I don't know about captaincy, but I think if you have him in your team, he's going to be probably one of the better options this week, just because of how scarce the options are, to say the least. And I think that you need one of Kane or Ronaldo. I'm not, vouching for any of them. It's not like they've been playing great. However, with the little amount of assets this double game week, I think you have to go there. As maybe we can go through the fixtures, and I'd like to kind of know what you think about, the double game week.
Yeah,
teams,
absolutely. Yeah, we'll go through the fixtures, then we'll come on to our teams. The chat is great. I mean, there's 538 people watching.
Wow.
which is fantastic. I just love the difference in opinion. You've got some people saying, there's no standout team here, rubbish game week, all of that. You've got other people saying free hit, capital letters, Lynn's there, most boring double game week ever, nuisance BS, free hitting, exclamation marks. It's kind of dividing people a little bit. You've got other people talking about bench boosts as well, so taking hits and then bench boosting in this week. One caveat Daniel Hall mentions is that we could lose some of these double game weeks if there's any FA Cup postponements. So at the moment, this is what's happening. Obviously, there can be postponements. There can, FA Cup games could be called off. Some of these single games could be called off. Everything like that. Don't know if you saw they've reduced the amount of testing now in the Premier League.
I saw that.
So there'll be no more weekly PCR tests or twice a week PCR tests. So it's going to be down to the let flows, which should reduce the number of positive tests. I mean, whether that's a good idea or not is a separate discussion, but that's what they're doing. So I'd expect there to be less chance of games getting called off. Anyway, but right, let's go through the games. Okay, let's start with Brentford then. Brentford. It's the worst double game week imaginable, really. Liverpool away, United at home. It doesn't look good defensively. Attack-wise, there's only really Tony anyway to rave about. I can't see there being much investment in their assets. Can you?
Absolutely not. And if you look at game week, not absolutely not, but probably not. And if you look at game week 23-24, Wolves, Man City doesn't scream points. So I would definitely avoid bringing in Brentford assets just because it's a double. And, this game week 21 is a prime example of why sometimes we fall into the double game week trap, as much as, 2 games is very luring, to say the least. But I don't think I would go there personally.
No, I bought in Pinnock last week just because I wanted a double game week player. It's frustrating because I was on Scout. I did the player comparisons and I was thinking which player to bring in, and I briefly put in. I'm not joking. I briefly put in Raw Slev in the player comparison because I knew he'd be Rico Henry's replacement. At right wing back. His stats were so unbelievably bad that I couldn't even. I looked at him and I just went, oh, he's got an XG of like 0.00 in the games he's played. He was so bad. I just thought, no, I'm not going to go there. Pinnock just absolutely blew him out of the water with touches in the penalty area, chances created, expected goal involvement, everything. So, yeah, I can't say that I was ever close to getting him, but I did briefly put him into the player comparison. So that's all I'm going to take there.
Well, I want to give you some credit for example, Martinelli, because he's your boy and you had him before his haul, and now everybody's even myself screaming praise towards Martinelli. So well done there, I
did benched in that City match. I tell you, that was
you did. Okay.
Miss an open, miss pretty much an open goal was really threatening in that game. But that's something. He had really good stats right going into it, and I thought with the games coming and him getting more minutes, he'd be a good option. Rawslev didn't, so I didn't go there. And it's typical, isn't it? You always get this in a double game where you get one player emerging who no one's ever considered. I think this game week has proved that. If you look at the top scoring players this week, Lanzini getting 2 goals for West Ham. Yeah. And, I saw a few people with him in, but fair play, I wasn't going to go there. Anyway, that's Brentford covered. Probably not going to be much investment. Brighton next. I think this one's a little bit more appealing. 2 home games. Anyone you're thinking about? Oh, come on.
No. I'm looking real quick. I'm looking at the fixtures onwards, and it's not too bad. They're blanking 24 for now. I'm just assuming that's a reschedule. Leicester, Watford, Burnley after. I don't know. Maybe a free hit. You definitely want to bring in one asset. If you have Sanchez, he's great. Maybe Lamptey. He didn't start the last game, right? But I'm not sure. Brighton's your team, so who would you suggest? I'd actually like to listen to your advice here.
Well, I think you make a really good point, and you've made it a few times, which is if you're bringing in players not part of a free hit, just as a transfer, you need to be looking at the fixtures ahead of what they've got. It can be very exciting to getting a double game week player. But if the fixtures aren't good going forward, you don't want to be stuck with a load of players that you don't that you don't want sort of in the long term. I think Brighton's fixtures sort of in the longer term are decent. I mean, there's a blank in 24, but around that there's games against Leicester, Watford, Burnley. Then that goes into Villa at home and Newcastle away. So I actually think investment in Brighton is a good option. Lamptey's the absolute standout for me. I was saying sort of when he first kind of came back inside around sort of beginning of December, I thought it's probably a bit too soon to be bringing him in over Christmas with all the games going ahead. And we've seen his minutes managed. He hasn't played too many 90 minutes. He's been taken off sort of 68 minutes, maybe been playing 20, 30 minutes. I think now, though, with games going back to normal on one a week, we're going to see him playing a lot more regularly. And if you look at his stats and his heat map, I mean, he's not a defender. He's a right winger. He's a right winger, almost right forwards, like Salah style heat map. He's really, really attacking, taking so many touches around the box. His XG is high. Lively Lamptey is definitely back in our thinking. He's the absolute standout for me. I think he's an excellent option for the double game week.
Yeah, if I could quickly add here, when you mentioned 7 double game weekers earlier, I think that's the sweet spot right now. I don't want to put a numerical number on how many double game weekers you have because it's so subjective, but I think that 7 is the one that people will try to get to. Whether that takes a -4, -8, I'm not sure. With that being said, I think free hit is going to be very less people will play the free hit unless, let's say, you have 2 or 3 double game weekers. Then maybe you play the free hit. Bench boost will also be very dependent on people with probably at least 9 double game weekers as of this moment. So I just think that the most generic play here this week will probably be playing your starting 11, taking a hit or 2 to get to maybe 5, 6, 7, hopefully at least 7 double game weekers. And so what that means is that you have to really watch out and think about who you bring in, because a lot of people who wildcarded in 21 are mudded because they brought in Everton assets, assuming there's going to be double now, and there's no double. Sure, their long-term fixtures are good, but you should really not just look at this double game weeker, especially because the overall fixtures are sort of underwhelming. So when you bring up a player like Lamptey and you mentioned how positive you are about him, that really interests me because I can replace him with a Livramento or someone like a James where I can create some funds for elsewhere and just have him as my 4th or 5th bench member for the future as well. So I like a shout like Lamptey this week for sure.
I think it's a great move for people who've had James and like yourself and who wanted to assess and wait a bit longer to get a replacement, or myself with Livramento, who just hasn't really been delivering. He's got a bit of an injury around him now. No double game this week. I think a hit for Livramento to Lamptey, I wouldn't be surprised if that paid off even in 1 week. And then I think longer term as well, it's likely to pay off too. I mean, the game against Palace is normally a feisty game between Brighton and Palace. Zaha normally scores against us, but there's normally goals in it. And the Chelsea game, I mean, Chelsea were terrified of Lamptey. They put Reece James over to left back to kind of
I remember that.
To mitigate the damage. It's going to be Alonso against Lamptey in this game. I fancy Lamptey against Alonso any day.
Quick question: Would you pay a little more for Cucurella?
Yeah, excellent question. A question I'm being asked a fair bit. I think Cucurella just lacks real attacking numbers and stats. If you look at the stats between them, Lamptey is so far ahead. What you're paying for with Cucurella is just the security of the starts. He's always going to start on the left-hand side. He just doesn't ever look particularly dangerous when I watch him play. And if you look at the stats, his XG is really low. His touches on the penalty area are really low. I think his assist potential's fairly high, but it's not like we've got like a big centre forward who's going to score lots of headers from crosses that he puts in. We're much more of a possession based side, working the ball sort of into the box, and that's where Cucurella falls away a little bit because he doesn't drift into that kind of central zone. But Lamptey does that a lot more, and Lamptey's 0.5 less. I think they're going to play similar minutes going forward. I think Lamptey's the obvious choice for me.
This is really good insight, and I'll say one last thing. I can't remember who. Oh, Limici, shout out Limici in the chat says only 4 days between Brighton's fixtures for Lamptey, so something to think about for sure.
Yeah, I think it could be the case that we see him start both, but we see him play less minutes in the Palace game. I think he's going to be used against Alonso. I have absolutely no doubt they're going to unleash him against Alonso, and I think the Palace game is a big game for Brighton generally. I mean, it's a team sort of around where they are in the table, and it's the kind of derby match. So I think, I mean, I think he can play significant minutes in both. But it's a good point that we might see reduced minutes from him.
Okay.
Just quickly, just on Brighton, I mean, other options attacking wise. I mean, we saw McAllister with probably his best performance ever in a Brighton shirt, 15 points against Everton, scored 2 goals. Could be an option, 5.3 if you're looking for a punt. Obviously, Trossard's there, 6.1. He's very inconsistent, but he can deliver. He's a very, very talented player. And then, of course, you've got Neil Maupay, who I would never advise anyone to buy. But 2 games, 2 home games. He's in good form at the moment. We might see him on a few radars. But yeah, I find it hard to pick him. Yeah, also mentions Welbeck as well. I think Maupay is the better pick over Welbeck, personally.
Okay.
He'll be on the penalties as well, if Gross is on the pitch, for sure. But yeah, I'd probably avoid the attacking assets. I think it's Cucurella or
Okay.
Lamptey.
To summarize, as the FPL community's Brighton expert, could you give us your top 3 picks for Brighton?
Top 3 picks, I would say Lamptey,
in order.
Lamptey first,
Okay.
Cucurella second, and then I'll say Trossard
Sanchez?
third. I'll say Trossard third.
Okay.
Yeah, Sanchez is okay, I guess. I just think he's. I mean, he could make quite a few saves in these games. I want to back the kind of the more attacking potential, especially with the Chelsea game in there. And I think Lamptey and Cucurella at least have the defensive number potentially, but then they also got the attacking thrust to them as well. Right, that's Brighton done to death. Burnley, I think this will probably be a short one. I mean, it's an okay looking double. I mean, Leicester at home, Watford at home. I just really struggle with who to recommend.
I can help you here, I think.
Please do.
All right. Take this very lightly. I'm not, recommending anybody to bring in Burnley assets, but okay, first things first. Let's look at Burnley's fixtures onwards. They have Arsenal, Man U, Liverpool, which screams danger. So I don't know if I would go there. So that's the main thing. If I was to go for an asset to attack this double game week, normally I would have said Lowton just because he's cheap and he looked very good on the right side with, I think, McNeil against Man United. However, they play Man United 2 games a week ago. Oh, right. Anyway, so they didn't look that great this last game week. However, against Leicester, who's really bad at set piece defending, possibly the better option would be Ben Mee. He's been more dangerous on set pieces over Tarkowski, but even there, it's like how dangerous could Ben Mee actually be? I'm not sure. So basically, I think it's a avoid for Burnley, especially because of the fixtures afterwards.
I love that you've tried to make a case for Ben Mee, but just not quite been able to put your hat on that fence. Yeah, I mean, Ben Mee, I think defensively it's a no-go. They've been really poor defensively.
Yep.
I was talking to Gianni yesterday about, we were doing kind of ratings across the different teams, and Burnley, you associate them with 1-0s, right? 1-0s or maybe 2-0s, but keeping it tight. And sort of getting something. They've had no 1-0 wins all season. They're conceding few shots on target, but conceding loads of goals, which indicates to me that the goalkeeper hasn't been performing to a high level. And you've got Pope there at 5.4. Hennessy's played a couple of games, but I don't think anyone's going to be looking towards any of those. In midfield, Cornet's a standout. He's off AFCON, so we can't consider him. So it means we're looking at the likes of Westwood, McNeil, pre-season favourite Brownhill. No one's going there. Let's be honest. It's not going to happen. So then you're only left with Chris Wood up top. 3 goals this season in 21 games. Pretty poor return, isn't it?
Yeah. Well put. Let's move on.
Let's move on. I think if you really want to invest in Burnley, I think Chris Wood is the one to get, but he's going to need to show a lot more than he's been doing this season. Okay, Chelsea next. Man City away, Brighton away. No Reece James. Lots of people looking to sell Chelsea assets with the blanks on the horizon, the difficult games. This gives players like Alonso a little bit of a lifeline. Have you got Alonso?
I have Alonso. I have Alonso and Reece James. And I'll keep Alonso for this double game week. I think he'll be perfectly fine. but I probably will. I definitely will move on Reece James. I'm not sure who yet. That's why a Lamptey shout is very intriguing. But that's where I'm at with possibly a triple up in Spurs. But after their performance against Chelsea yesterday, that was super disheartening because previous to this game last night, I was saying I think Spurs defense has gotten a lot better and kind of tweeted that out as well. And then they absolutely got demolished yesterday. And, you know, the likes of Eric Dyer is very important to Spurs right now in their defensive anchor. So, yeah, I'm not sure if I would triple up on Spurs, especially since their fixtures afterwards aren't the greatest either.
Yeah.
But James is probably going to go.
It's interesting with Conte's comments as well. Who's basically saying this squad isn't good enough. We're miles behind Chelsea. You know, we need investment, and doing this kind of plea to the board to invest. And you know, results have been quite good for Spurs lately, but I think it has been glossing over the fact that their squad is thin, and I think he obviously knows that as a top manager. I mean, Reece James isn't going to play, so I think moving him on obviously makes a lot of sense. I think Alonso's really interesting because I think the general consensus across everyone, all the Alonso owners, was he needs to go. You know, Man City away next game, and then a load of blanks. You know, he was kind of the first on people's chopping block, and I think a lot of people might even actually be buying him now to try and tap into the double game week. Yeah, because I mean it's him or Rudiger, right? I think they're probably the two that you're going to go for. And obviously Alonso has the better, we imagine, attacking appeal at left wing back until they sign a replacement.
Yeah, I think the Chelsea one's very interesting. It's a big question mark for me. I mean, would you bring in anyone? Would you bring in Mount or any of their attacking assets?
Attacking assets is interesting, yeah. I mean, Lukaku, I guess, is a little bit tempting. I mean, he is like fit now. There's no question marks around his fitness. It's just, would I have Lukaku over Kane or Ronaldo? I don't think I would. I think I'd go for those two. You know, Tottenham have the better double game week, I think, on paper. And Lukaku still has this kind of cloud around him since that interview that he did. So it's hard to make a case for him. I think Mount is an intriguing one. It's just where we kind of fit him into our sides, because the midfield I think is going to be quite stacked. I think we're going to have Jota and Bowen both with really good games, but no double game week. Son as well, so that's 3. And then can you find a place for Mount amongst sort of other players that you're looking at? If you're going 5 in the midfield, maybe, but if you're going Kane, Ronaldo and Dennis or King, which I think we're going to see a lot of people doing, you've only got one more spot in midfield. So for me, that's probably a Leicester asset, which is the priority, like a Maddison or maybe a Harvey Barnes over Mount. But I do think Mount could be a factor.
Yeah, I think it's well put. I think the only ones I would consider is Alonso and Mount.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, this is the thing with Chelsea. I'd love to see players like Pulisic or Ziyech, you know, become options, but they're just not at the moment, and you just don't know who's going to start out of them. So it really is only Mount, Lukaku, and Rudiger or Alonso, I think. And it's a shame with Chelsea. Yeah,
a quick shout out to FPL Bruno, because I think a month ago when Ziyech was kind of, I think he wasn't part of the team, right? He was just kind of lurking around, like, you know, getting some minutes here and there. He said that he thinks Ziyech is going to become a very important, instrumental part to this Chelsea team. And yeah, maybe not the best FPL asset, but he's been playing really, really, really well. So I really like the look of Ziyech, and maybe he becomes someone to consider down the line, but who knows?
Yeah, but I had him as soon as he signed for Chelsea. I had him earmarked. I thought he was going to really, you know, be a factor. And if you look at his stats when he plays, they're so good, but he just can't seem to find a place in the side. And I wonder if we're going to see another kind of Salah type thing with him, where he gets frustrated with his lack of minutes, goes off to another club, goes off to Italy or Spain, absolutely kills it over there, and ends up coming back to the Premier League, you know, maybe in a couple of years at, you know, top of his game. Anyway, Leicester. So Leicester, I think, are probably one of the most intriguing teams on this list. I mean, defensively, it's a joke. There's no chance I'm going anywhere near any of their defenders. But attacking wise, I mean, we've got Vardy out, we've got Daka injured, Iheanacho's off to AFCON, so they've got no recognised striker available for us, which means Harvey Barnes is going to be the one probably operating. And we saw him do it last season, pretty ineffectively, but he did it. What do you think about Barnes?
No, I definitely prefer Maddison. I'm not so keen on this double fixture Burnley, Tottenham. I don't know if it screams points. If I was gonna go somewhere, probably Madison. Harvey Barnes, I think it's too punty. I'm a little hesitant to go there. But please explain why you would go for Harvey Barnes as.
Well, I wouldn't buy him with a transfer.
Okay.
If I was free hitting, I think it's kind of one of those ones where all the stars have kind of aligned a little bit for him potentially. I mean, he has got a flag on him at the moment, but it's to do with match fitness. I don't think there's actually an injury there. People are talking about Lookman in the chat as well, who's played well with 2 goals in his last 2 games, I believe. One off the bench against Liverpool and against Man City. So we might see him maybe starting in a more kind of advanced role. I just think if you can nail the who's going to start as the striker for Leicester in these 2 games, Burnley and Spurs are leaky. They concede a lot of goals. And Leicester have been good from an offensive point of view. So if you can get that midfielder right, you're getting an out-of-position player. Perez as well. I mean, this is the problem, is that there's a few players who I think could fit into this, sort of number 9-ish type system, which means I think Maddison probably is the safer pick. We might get some clues from Rodgers in his press conference who's going to play, because they're surely going to say, you've got no strikers, Brendan. Like, what are you going to do? And he'll say, well, we've got solutions. We could, Barnes has been looking sharp in training and he's likely to lead the line. I don't know. If we got something like that, it would be interesting. Maddison, though, I mean, Maddison was someone that I really wanted to get in before their game was postponed. I mean, he got 4 double-digit returns in 5 games.
Mm-hmm.
And
amazing.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. And, one of those was City in that kind of near comeback that they had. So he's interesting. We need to sort of know about his fitness. The other player is Tielemans on pens with Vardy away.
Is he? Is that confirmed?
Well, he's been taking them when Vardy's not been on the pitch.
Okay.
And looking around,
very nice.
There's no one else that can take them. So his numbers are good actually. Tielemans, his expecting goal involvement is and minutes per chance is massively up compared to last season. They're looking to get him higher up the pitch and more involved.
When I assess a player like Tielemans, I look at players like Doucouré, and what I mean here is I'm not necessarily looking at are they producing goals and points and assists, because that's more for the generic FPL options. With guys like Tielemans and Doucouré, what you're looking for is, are they starting to make these late darting runs into the box? Or, are they showing the right patterns? Are they showing the right movements? Because they're very kind of, I don't want to say streaky, but once they find that kind of late runs, that's when they become dangerous as FPL options. So Tielemans is I just don't know if I would go there personally. For me, as I just sorted through my thoughts as you were speaking, I think Maddison would be probably my choice, but I think Lookman is a very, very good shout, because the danger with Lookman is he's always looking good. He's the ex-Lively king, right? But at the same time, I think it was 2 games ago or 1 game ago when I was watching the Leicester game, Lookman looked so hungry, so dangerous, and wanting the ball, wanting to take on players, wanting to shoot, and that's always a good thing in FPL. So I really like Lookman. I think he's a decent shout, and I wouldn't focus too much on who's the number 9. I mean, I think they can score from the left, score from the right. They synchronize, they mix around a lot. It's a very free-flowing Leicester team when it's moving. So I don't think I would fixate on trying to predict who the number 9 will be, or who the OOP will be.
I guess it's hard to know because Rodgers has shifted Leicester around so much. Different systems, different players coming in. He hasn't really settled on the first choice 11. It's kind of hard to know who's going to come in. And I mean, Lookman has been playing well, but mostly off the bench, or very, very likely to get subbed early. I think he's only completed 90 minutes once all season. So immediately you see a play like that and you think, oh, there's a bit of a flag around this. But again, this is like where the free hit can be quite powerful. And I think a lot of people who are considering the free hit can go for these kind of more punty players and know that they haven't got to deal with the fallout of it in a few weeks. Because if you go for Lookman, if you spend a -4 to get Lookman in and he doesn't start one of the games or he gets reduced minutes, you've then got a problem in your team going forward. And if you look at Leicester's fixtures, they're not great afterwards. Tottenham, Brighton, Liverpool, West Ham. These are Sorry, not Tottenham. They're playing Tottenham to go away. But Brighton, Liverpool, West Ham, Wolves, Chelsea. They're the next 5 games. From a defensive point of view, it's only really the West Ham game where from an attacking point of view, sorry, it's only the West Ham game where I think there's going to be a lot of goals in that game. Brighton, Liverpool, Wolves, Chelsea can all keep it tight against Leicester. So if you've got a Tielemans or a Lookman or a Perez or a Barnes or whoever, and they're not even playing and they've got a difficult run, you potentially got a problem. I think Maddison's the standout pick.
Okay, nice.
Yep. United next. I mean, United have been so bad. I didn't think it'd get worse from that Newcastle game, and then it did. The last game I watched was, I mean, I can't even put into words how bad the game was against Wolves, and they couldn't pass. They're just as simple as that. I don't care what system you've got. I don't care what manager you've got. When the team physically can't pass the ball like 10 yards to each other, there's a huge problem. So, I mean, who'd you get? Ronaldo's the obvious one. De Gea in goal. Anyone else you'd look at?
No, that's it. That's it.
No.
I mean, if you have Dallo, you just pray to God he plays. But, where would you go? There's literally nowhere to go, right? Fullbacks are rotation risk as well as defense is leaky. Midfielders, do you trust anybody outscoring the likes of who we already have? Probably not for a premium price. So it's just Ronaldo and De Gea for me. I think unless we see something. Do they play a game before double Gameweek 22? I'm not sure actually, but if they do, maybe we watch them play and see how they do. But for me, there's 2 assets and that's it. And even with the likes of Ronaldo, would you actually make a transfer to get him in right now? I'm not really sure. Yeah.
I think that's such a difficult position to be in if you don't own Ronaldo for this week, because he's got the potential to have. I mean, it's 2 decent-ish looking games. I think Villa's a tougher one. I think Brentford can be got at if United turn up, and I think we have seen United turn it on at times a little bit, and in the game where Ronaldo did well against Burnley, Burnley were poor, but United had a bit more of a swagger about them, a bit more confidence, and they were stringing passes together, and it looked more convincing as to like all the other games that I've seen. Norwich, Newcastle, Wolves, even going back as far as Palace was a poor game, but the Burnley game offers a slither of hope that they can get things going again. Would I be going all out to get Ronaldo if I didn't have him? I don't know if I would.
Yeah.
If I'm being totally honest. I if you're having to like rip your part team to bring him in for these 2 games, I'm not sure it's worth it. In fact, that probably segues quite nicely to the next team, which is Tottenham, with a game against Arsenal and an away match against Leicester. I think this is a better set of games than the United games, and we know that Kane. These are 2 teams that Kane has his best records against. Arsenal and Leicester. Always scores against them. Got 4 goals against Leicester a few years ago. So I think maybe if I had the money and I could pick one of Kane or Ronaldo, I think I'd go for Kane.
Nice. It's funny you say that because in our Burning Question series with Pros, we have this little like friendly rivalry going. Sort of like I guess you and Mark, and Pros is like my big brother to say the least, and he has Ronaldo and I have Kane. And I remember teasing him, I think Gameweek 20 or something, where Kane did much better than Ronaldo and said, look, I got the better asset. And then this game week, Kane was just, invisible. So it's a friendly battle going on between Kane and Ronaldo. As you mentioned, it's a good segue because of the scarcity of options this week for the double game week. Kane, I don't know about Kane, but at least Ronaldo and Son are probably the most popular captaincy options. Correct me if I'm wrong, but looks like those 2 will be up there in terms of captaincy.
And Ronaldo,
And Ronaldo, yeah. So, Ronaldo and Son. I think Kane is still pretty low EO from what I know. So I think it'll be very interesting whether you want to play against that EO in a double game week or you just, suck it up and go for one of Ronaldo or Kane.
Yeah, for sure. I think if I had Kane, I think he would probably be my captain this week, which is weird considering the form has been so bad. I mean, you talk about your battle of Kane and Ronaldo. I mean, it's like the battle of the friendly ghost, isn't it? I mean, they disappear in matches so often. They both obviously are world-class players on their day, but we just haven't seen it enough from either of them really, like consistently. Ronaldo's had a couple of quite big hauls and performances, but needs United to be firing kind of on all cylinders, I think, to get the points. Whereas we've seen Kane, previously, he can drag Spurs sort of single-handedly. I don't really see Ronaldo. I mean, he has done it, right? He has done it in the Champions League where he's scoring these kind of vital goals. But with the team performing so badly around him, I think it's just too much for him at the moment to be relied on so heavily in the way that he has been. He there's only so much that one kind of player can do. So it's very tricky between them. But I think it's Kane. It's Kane for me. If you had Kane or Son, would you back Son still, or would you be tempted by Kane?
I love Sonny and my handle is Sonaldo, but I think this week I would most likely, at least this point in time right now, I think I would put it on Kane. Son hasn't looked great. I mean, he's still performing. He still has the highest XG out of, I think, all mids in the last 4 game weeks from my brief research. So he's still getting the chances. He's just not finishing as we know him as a lethal finisher to be. And Kane is just a little bit more further forward and probably going to be more involved and has pens as well. And a lot of times it's about safety, especially if your rank is pretty decent at this point in time. So that's kind of where I'm leading personally as my captaincy.
Yeah. You've also got the pens with Kane as well, which obviously 2 games, you've got double the chance of getting something like that. It's what you want. You just want some kind of like dirty little return from your captain in these games. And you kind of feel like, going for someone with a captaincy or with free kicks or with set plays. We saw it with with Bowen this week, for example, getting an assist. It's kind of, you just want to get something. If you can get something in the first game, going into the second game with something, you can really kind of attack it and hope for quite a big score. So yeah, I like this. What about defensively? What about someone like Reguilon or Dyer, like you mentioned?
Very, very interesting. I don't know if they're going to keep a clean sheet against Arsenal and Leicester. I mean, Arsenal is the team in form. They look really, really good. Leicester have some decent attacking assets as well as recent form. So yeah, I don't think you base it on clean sheet. So if that's the case, you probably have to go for an attacking option in Reguilon, Royal, and possibly even Ben Davis. I definitely think Royal is not the way to go. I'm very biased on this, and I want to emphasize that what I say here may not be completely correct, because all these players are marvelous footballers. They're in the Premier League for a reason. So it's never easy for me to say someone's bad or anything like that, right? They're all geniuses in their own right. I watched a lot of Spurs game because of Son, and ever since Royal and Reguilon has come to Spurs, they are very good players, but they really lack the finishing quality. And what that means is not necessarily shooting, but for wingbacks, it's about crossing, right? Putting a good ball in the box and being able to provide dangerous crosses. And Royal really, really lacks that, if I'm being completely frank. And
similar to Wan-Bissaka, right?
Very similar. And I think it was Baker on Twitter who mentioned that Royal, stats you have to take lightly, because he was saying that Royal at least puts in a ton of crosses. So that's, volume of shots, a volume of crosses sometimes is what you want, because if you have 10 crosses versus 1 crosses, you have the chances of you scoring is going to be higher. However, I can reverse that argument and say I'd rather have 1 cross from TAA than 20 crosses from Royal. That's how ineffective his crossing is. If there's anyone I would go for, it'd be Reguilon, but word of caution, Spurs defense did not look good at all last night. So without Eric Dyer, so just wait till the end and think about it. And if you want to triple up, then maybe go for it. If not, I wouldn't advise completely for it, to say the least.
One interesting thing about Royal in the last game, because I watched that game and I completely agree with you. It was just hit and hope over and over again. It was just quite depressing in a way, just to watch these failed cross going in. He ended up with 2 bonus points from that.
Yeah, I saw that.
Just from the sheer volume of crosses that he was putting in. So it's like they're not punished as much for poor efforts like that as they would be if he tried to make dribbles and got tackled, or if he had shots off target, that kind of thing. I thought that was quite interesting that he came away from that game, because he didn't have a good game.
Yeah,
he was, like you say, it was wasteful, but FPL have deemed that as being worthy of kind of the second highest honour you can get in terms of their BPS system. I prefer Reguilon as well. I just think Reguilon's a better player. The only problem with Reguilon is the minutes. I mean, getting subbed off sort of fairly early. There's been some question marks around his fitness and demands of that spot compared, for what Conte wants. Sessegnon's knocking around as well, though I think he's got an injury at the moment. Ben Davies, I mean, in theory, could move over there, but has been used as centre back. I don't know. There's a few question marks. I still prefer him though.
Yeah, I think I would pick Lamptey over the likes of Reguilon or Davis, possibly. I'm just not convinced. I mean, their defense is getting better, but against the strong teams, they haven't been performing. And as I mentioned previously, I thought their defense was getting better, but yesterday was a clear sign that they have a long ways to go from becoming possibly a top 4 team. Yeah. I mean, they need signings, they need wing backs, they need to revamp that midfield. Tottenham are a long way away from competing for the title for sure.
Yep. Final one is what about Lloris having a very good season, under the radar a bit. I do wonder if the free hitters might move towards Lloris over De Gea, for example. I don't think there's too much in it between them. I'm expecting saves from Spurs in these 2 games. I mean, if you look at it, kind of, Arsenal have been much better at home than away. So, Spurs are at home in this match, so they've got a better chance against Arsenal in this game. And then they are playing a Leicester side without a recognised striker. So if you're playing a team without a recognised striker, you've got to think you've got a higher chance of getting a clean sheet in that match, even though Leicester have been fairly decent defensively.
What is Lloris priced at as?
Lloris is 5-4.
5-4. Okay, interesting.
Yeah. I mean, just the final thing on Leicester is if they are playing without a recognised striker, you could make the case that they're going to have more shots. Those shots are going to be worse. Lloris is going to pick up more saves, get more points. In theory, obviously it's all complete speculation, but I don't mind Lloris. I think he's probably a fairly decent shout if on a free years.
Yeah, and they have good fixtures to 28. I think they play Man City and maybe I think it was Chelsea or Liverpool. 2 strong teams between that time, but up till 28, Spurs have a decent fixture run. So yeah, maybe a not a bad shout at 5.4. I thought he would be closer to 6, but 5.4 is not bad at all.
Yeah, he's dropped down a little bit. 8% ownership as well. Okay, final team then is Watford. As I mentioned before, best fixtures of the lot, Newcastle and Burnley. I want to show you their defence quickly because this is, I mean, I don't know if the word's amusing, but this is their defence. Craig Cathcart, you talk about sort of not wanting to slate players. I'm not a huge Craig Cathcart fan. I don't think he's good enough for the Premier League, but there he is. He's the top scoring defender, incidentally, 19 points. Truce Ekong, he's off to AFCON. Kiko Firmino, done his hamstring. Messina, AFCON. Nagakia, he's played very sporadically this season, but he is available. Danny Rose, done his knee. No one knows when he's back. Sirialta, he's played 90 minutes in a few games this season, and they've coincided, I believe, with some of Watford's worst performances and heaviest losses as well. But he's available. Nkulu's done his hamstring. Kabasele done his calf, and Morris is a 4 million defender who I've never heard of, only added in Gameweek 13. So their defence is completely and utterly broken. More than you can imagine. It's a real shame Newcastle didn't get the double game week that we thought they would, because I think Callum Wilson in this match could have been absolute gold. Do you reckon he's someone that you could still consider?
Callum Wilson?
Yeah. Before we talk about Watford, I just think anyone playing Watford during this AFCON spell surely has a big chance with 2 names added to the list of all the injuries they've got.
Followed by Leeds, Everton, Aston Villa, West Ham, Brentford, Brighton. Not bad at all. Probably some new signings in January.
Oh God!
Motivation to, well, hopefully, motivation to not get relegated. Maybe there's a shout here, but I love Callum Wilson. I think he's such a marvelous footballer. Do you trust Newcastle though?
Nope.
Exactly.
I think that the Trippier signing is an interesting signing for Newcastle because they're overpaying. He's on his kind of later years, but he's got experience winning. He's going to add a lot of quality to that side. He'll be on a high salary. Doesn't matter for them. He's the kind of player which I think is a really, really good signing. He'd be a terrible signing for someone like Everton, for example. But I think he's a brilliant signing for someone like Newcastle. Because
yeah.
they need to get these winners into the side, and he can come into that dressing room. So England international, just won the league with Spain, and he's going to inject something into that side to make them think they can get out of it. I think it's a great signing.
Two things. I'm noticing Wilson's out in the chat because I think in the last game he had like a calf injury or something, but I thought that was over, but I guess he's still injured. And
I thought he was kind of said he was going to be all right.
Okay, I'm not sure.
Maybe that was St. Maximin actually.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, if he's out, then that kind of ruins that.
yeah, and I get the idea you're saying about how Trippier is a better signing for Newcastle over the likes of Leicester, who you're basically saying that Leicester need more younger kind of potential filled players, right?
I think everyone does really. Everyone's kind of roadmap should be signing players, and Everton have done that with the signing they've got from Scotland. I can't remember his name. There's talk about the comparisons of that. And I think Everton have paid about 16 million for him or something, and Spurs have paid sort of 12 million. On the surface, obviously Trippier's one more better player, more established, but you're investing in players kind of in the long term. But that's not what Newcastle need right now. They don't need long term. They need to get out. They need to not get relegated. That is the number one thing they need. So if they can bring in Aubameyang and Trippier and these players that they're Coutinho, these players they're being linked with. I mean, even Luca Dean, they're being, these are top players, top signings. They get them out of the mire, I think, and then you just deal with the fallout of all their salaries and egos a bit later down the line. Anyway, right, let's talk about Watford because I didn't realise that about Wilson. I thought he was going to be okay. I must have misread. Okay, so the only thing with Watford then we've done defence. There's no one in midfield with Sarr out. Dennis and King. People talking in the chat about captain material.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Yeah. Quickly on the Newcastle talk. Shout out FPL TT, who's the community Newcastle expert, and he's a good friend of mine. And we just kind of bashed Newcastle, so apologies there, TT. But yeah, on Josh King and Dennis, I have Josh King. I wish I had Dennis.
Same.
Grass FC wins, and the only way for me to get to Dennis is to downgrade Antonio. I'm very happy with Antonio with a single game week this week and to have him long term. So I just don't see a route for me to go there. I mean, it's very team dependent. If you don't have one or the other, which is very unlikely, I think most managers will have at least one of them, right? If you have, let's say, King, you don't go to Dennis, you just play King. If you have Dennis, you're very happy. I think you're in a better position. If you have one and you don't have Antonio, then maybe you can consider doubling up. But because I have Antonio, I think I'm just happy playing Antonio and Bowen this week.
Yeah, I think we're going to come on to our teams in a second. I think it is interesting when you look at, particularly when you look at West Ham against Leeds and Liverpool against Brentford, these aren't players I want to take out. So you're talking about 7 being that sweet spot. And I think if you've got Trent, Jota, Bowen, Antonio, that's 4 single game week players. That leaves you 7 other players to double with. And I think there's nothing wrong with doing that. Just a note on Dennis. I mean, he was subbed at half time against Spurs. Lots of rumblings around, this kind of fallout of him not being allowed to go off to AFCON duty, whether that's down to him not wanting to go, whether that's down to Watford not letting him go. Interesting that he subbed at 45 minutes in a game which they were in. It was 0-0 at the time, and they take off their kind of best player and most likely to score player. So could it be that his head's not quite there? Is there a bit of a risk with that?
Yeah. I think that halftime sub was very weird, and the mental. There's a lot of rumors about why he's not at AFCON, right? So there's got to be some behind the scenes story that we don't know about, and these guys are humans in the end. So I'm sure he'll be fine, to be honest.
Hard to speculate. Okay, just so you know, we've got 1,600 people watching live. Sonaldo, which is amazing. Thanks for being here. If you're enjoying this video, like the video and subscribe to the channel. You can drop a message to us in the chat, or if you're listening later, drop us a comment and we'll endeavour to answer it as best we can. Right, before we finish, let's have a look at our teams then and just see kind of how we're set up going forward. So your team's on the screen. It's De Gea in goal with his double against Villa and Brentford. Alonso with his double against City and Brighton. Cancelo against Chelsea. Trent against Brentford. Damari Gray against Norwich, Bowen against Leeds, Son with the double against Arsenal and Leicester, Jota, Kane with his double, same as Son, Antonio, and King with his double against Newcastle and Burnley. Kane captain over Son, like you said. A bench of Saka, Livramento, James, and Ramsdale. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. You've got 5 double game week players. I'm guessing you've got 2 transfers.
Yeah, no, I got one. But
Only one.
before I talk about my team, I think there's some very good questions that we didn't answer as. So if you don't mind, one of the questions was, would you captain Dennis or King over the likes of, let's say, Kane, Ronaldo, and Son? I personally wouldn't, but how about yourself?
No, I wouldn't. Okay. I don't trust Watford enough. You know, yeah, I think you tend to want to pick a captain against one of the top sides because they've got a higher chance of turning it on. And Watford haven't been, we want to see this kind of attacking Watford side. And I think, we were getting that in some of the games. The Man United game, they scored 4 goals. If against Leicester, they scored 2 goals but concede 4. That's all fine. But then lately, 1 goal against City, 1 goal against Brentford, 1 goal against West Ham, no goals against Spurs. These kind of goals have dried up, and that's all they can kind of offer, really. And if Dennis's head isn't quite right, King hasn't been really delivering consistently for a while now. I think it's got to be one of the more premium assets that we back, personally.
Yeah. And in the previous game, they against Spurs, they played such a low block that I don't know if they're going to be. They literally took 8 punches for 90 minutes and then eventually got scored on. Of course, Spurs is considered a better team than the teams they will play in 22. But do you trust Watford? I don't think so. So on that note, Dennis or Watford, if you had to pick one.
Dennis or King?
Sorry. Dennis
or Watford. I think I'd probably pick Dennis. Watford can stay. If I was free hitting, I didn't have either. I think I'd go for Dennis personally. Okay, nice. I think people were right about him being he's a better player than King. I think he's going to go on and do some really good things. There's a lot of talent there. Can score in lots of different ways. I do like it. I mean, King's got the penalties. I think he could have got a return against Spurs as well. Lloris played well. If I'm picking one though, I think Dennis is the more likely to get a goal.
Okay, yeah, I'll quickly kind of speak through my team and kind of give you an idea. I don't want to speak so much about my team, but hopefully by me speaking about my team, it can help kind of get a gist of what's going on here. Again, it's very important that if any of the FA Cup games get postponed, then the double is probably cancelled. So hold your transfers till the end. Really just forget about price rises at this point in time. I have 5 double game weekers: De Gea, Alonso, Son, Kane, and King, which are all fantastic options this week, given the scarcity of doubles. So I'm very happy with that. I have 1 free transfer, 0.6 in the bank. So as we discussed, I think the key number here this week will be to get at least 6, 7 would be the sweet spot in terms of double game weekers. So for me to get there, it means I would have to take a hit, and I'm totally happy with that, getting a double game weeker in. Again, if Arsenal had their double, I'd be very, very happy, and I would be bench boosting instantly, because that means that the Liverpool boys would have the double as well as my 2 Arsenal assets, which would give me 9 plus 1 or 2 transfers to get to 10 or 11. However, that's not happening anymore. So the bench boost is sort of now in my back pocket to use later down the line. I would not free hit. Unless you have, let's say, 2 double game weekers. Even 3 double game weekers, I would consider just taking 2 or -8 and getting to 5 or 6, because it's not a very enticing double game week, to say the least, right? I think there's going to be more double game weeks, blank game weeks, where the free hits will become more powerful, especially if you use your first free hit. I will do everything possible to not use your second free hit. If you don't have both free hits and you only have 1 or 2 or 3 double game weekers, then yeah, maybe that's the play here. But ideally, I think the most Pete managers will go for a starting 11 with 6 or 7 double game weekers. So here's where I'm at. Whether I decide to get rid of Livramento and James just because they're issues, or I decide to get rid of someone else, I don't know yet, because I don't necessarily need to get rid of Livramento or James. It's just they're just not playing this week. That's all. So that's where I'm at. I don't know who I'm going to bring in, and we had a good discussion about the assets. So early thinking here.
Yep. Absolutely. Just a few questions in the chat. What does DGW mean? DGW means double game week, which is, if you're sort of new to FPL, it just means that certain teams have 2 fixtures within 1 week. So it's why people tend to get quite excited about them, because you can effectively captain a player or bring in a player and they score points for 2 games rather than the one that they normally get. Can you play free hit and bench boost together? No, you can't. You can only play 1 chip a week. That includes the wildcard as well. So you can't wildcard into a amazing looking squad and then bench boost or triple captain. You need to make sure you kind of stagger them over different weeks. If you've got 2 free hits as well, you can't play 2 free hits in back-to-back game weeks as well. So if for whatever reason you played your free hit last week, you can't then play another free hit this week. Speaking of free hits, I think the people that free hitted, back when Liverpool had the blank, I think they're the ones that are going to be celebrating this double game week, because a lot of them got 20, 30, 40 points even. A lot of the popular picks kind of came in. Tierney, for example, was in pretty much every free hit team that I saw and scored in that game. What they were hoping for was a really underwhelming double, which meant that they could effectively save their free hit and not have to worry about it. And that's exactly what they've got. So well done to anyone who benefited from that free hit a few weeks ago. Yeah, that all sounds good. I'll just quickly go through my team.
Can I add some good points here? Not good points, but some points I wanted to add. Number one is
some good points.
I was.
They better be good now, Andy.
Let me add some mediocre points here. I was going to bench boost for the past 3-4 game weeks. I already started planning for it in a normal season, but it's mudded, and it's okay to change your plans. It's all about being adaptable. So that's the first thing I'll say. Second thing is, someone's asking, would you captain a guy like Jota? I would not go there. I always want to maximize 2 games, and 180 minutes over 90 minutes is always better. So always try to, like, for example, this week we captained a lot of Bowen managers, and we have 1 more game left. So we're very excited about that. And on a note about bench boost does not necessarily mean is this double game week a good game week or not? Because you could bench boost with 7 players now versus later down the line in game week 30, 36, who knows, where there's another double game week, and bench boost with 11 players. But that's not the point. It's relative to the field. How many points you have this week relative to the field getting this week. So maybe even if you have less double game weekers this week than compared to later down the line, if you think the maximized difference between the field and you this week is going to be greater, then maybe that's the play this week. If you look long-term strategy and think about overall points is essentially the end goal, I still think that to get to the end goal, you have to play it week by week. And this could be a week of separation, even with, like, let's say 9 double game weekers. Yeah.
It's also difficult to know how you're going to be set up, further down the line. If you look at your bench, and I think at the moment, I look at your bench, for example. James obviously is difficult, because he's injured. But if you had a different defender there, you could make a case for bench boosting with Ramsdale, Saka, Livramento if he's fit, and like Lamptey, for example. It's a decent looking bench. And I think at the moment, with the Salah money coming out of our sides, we're seeing quite a strong squads around. So this is where I think the bench boost could become useful. The only problem with the bench boost right now is just these postponements and these games getting called off. And it strikes to me that you want to save that chip for as far down the line as possible, when hopefully things are sorted out and there's less chance of games getting called off kind of last minute. I wouldn't advise playing the bench boost this week, I don't think.
Yeah, same here.
Depends on your squad, but for me, I think it's a bit early. Should we do my team quickly, or is there anything else from the chat you want to?
No, I'm good. I spoke way too much about my team. Sorry, guys. Let's go to you.
It's always good to hear. I won't go on about. I'll be doing Black Box tonight, and I'll be talking a bit more about my team on there, so you can little plug for Black Box tonight if anyone's there. Look, I think Mark and I are doing it at 9:30, something like that. So if you're interested, check that out. My team, it's pretty similar to yours. It's fairly template in a lot of ways. De Gea and Ramsdale, Trent, Cancelo. And then 3 defenders who I'm wondering how I've ended up with: Ben Johnson, Ethan Pinnock, and Livramento. You take Reece James out, and it's kind of like, oh, what have I done here? So that needs to change in some way. And then Martinelli, Jota, Foden, Son, Bowen, Antonio, King, and Ronaldo's in place. So let's go to pick my team. So I'm the same as you. I've got 5 double game week players in play. I'm thinking of getting rid of Foden and bringing in Maddison, mostly because I love Maddison, and then upgrading Livramento to Lamptey. I think that is probably what I'm going to do. So that'll give me 7 with a -4. Brings in a player that I want in Lamptey. I'm probably going to want Foden back at some point because City's fixtures are really good afterwards. But I want to tap into that Maddison double game week in some point. And I don't want to sell Son, Martinelli, Jota or Bowen because I think they're all good picks. It's Son, Jota and Bowen this week, and Martinelli I think going forward I want to keep him in. So yeah, that's what I think I'm going to do. It means no Kane, it means no Dennis, but other than that, I'm not too worried. I don't think they're players that are going to massively hurt me, if I'm being honest. I don't think I'll free hit.
I think you're in a strength of position here. I like your moves. I think there's nothing to complain about. I'm very very happy that you're so set on what you're going to do, because now it confirms, okay, maybe Lamptey is the move here. And I also really like Maddison, but I have a question for you. Maybe this is for my team. Gray's playing Norwich and Saka's playing Tottenham, but I really like the look of Saka. I know they have some blanks coming up in 25-27, but Saka, Martinelli, Odegaard, I think they're all 3 fantastic options right now. Would I get rid of one of them for Maddison? Probably not, right?
That is tough. I wouldn't sell Saka. Right. I think Saka's a good pick going forward. I don't know if Gray is. I know it's Norwich.
Yeah.
He's not the main man anymore, Gray. I mean, he was basically kind of, the folk. I think I'd be tempted to sell Gray for Maddison, given it's a double. I still expect Leicester to outscore Leicester assets to outscore Gray going forward. I guess the issue is then the Leicester fixtures aren't that good and Gray's fixtures are quite good.
Yeah, Gray's fixture's way better down the line.
It's not an easy one. And I'm very biased because I love Maddison so much. I would probably do it. I'd probably sell Gray to Maddison.
Really? Okay.
I just think Everton are so poor. They really are. They are such a bad team at the moment. I wouldn't sell Saka. I think he's key. He's key to Arsenal, and they've been so good lately. Right. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. Yeah, we peaked at around 1,700 people watching this. I'm glad I did this video. Just kind of stuck it together, and I think you and I could talk about FPL for days. And this is the first video we've done together. It's been really nice to finally do one.
It's a pleasure to been able to get to know you the past few months, and for all the viewers, Az is an awesome guy, and very very grateful for our friendship. And
I'll give you the bribe.
It's crazy, man. I'm a big fan of Black Box, and to be able to speak to you right now like this is just mind-boggling. So.
Well, it's all down to the awesome work you and Praz are doing. I mean, if anyone's listening to this and they haven't listened to the Burning Questions, a weekly video, this was started about a month ago, 6 weeks ago, something like that, with Sonaldo and Praz. They are absolutely fantastic. We've got some exciting news about them coming. If you are fans of them, if you're not, you probably want to look away. But if you are, which I'm sure you are, then you'll be interested to know. Just keep your eye on Scout for that. But no, it's been great. All the stuff you follow Sonaldo on Twitter, post some great threads. You and Praz, you've got great sort of analytical minds for it. It's become a bit of a love in this now, isn't it? Between both of us.
People are gonna now the comments are gonna be, oh, look at them being so nice to each other.
It's so nice. It makes a change of doing this with Mark, where he's just horrible to me for 2 hours. But no, that's great. No, you've been awesome, and yeah, it's great to have you on board doing stuff with us. We're really happy with all the work that you and Praz are doing. Right. Enough of the loving, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. We will be back at some point. I was going to do a video with Gianni at 1, but I cancelled it because of this video. So we're going to do the second part of our teams grading at some point today. I don't know when. I don't even know if it'll be live. Who knows? I'm a bit rattled by the double gaming stuff. But there'll be a video coming at some point. But until then, thank you all